biblical poetry. It is a gift from God, and we are in the right season to hear it. So bring in your wandering minds and join Evangelist Elise Lyle as she unfolds and teaches our God's poetic word.
Welcome to Biblical Poetry. I'm your host, Elise Lyle. Let us pray together. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day and for this hour of prayer. We pray, oh God, that you just come into the room, come into this telecast, and you get the glory out of it. We bless your name, and we know that you'll watch over your people of the nation. To this, we give your name glory and honor. In your name, Jesus, we do ask. Amen. Welcome again to Biblical Poetry. We have a theme today. We're going to be talking about the white American woman. In the media, you hear a lot about the black-skinned woman, but today we're going to be talking about the white-skinned woman. And I'm hoping that you'll stay with me, and we're going to let our lesson unfold with our first poem, which is entitled White Teachers. And the poem reads, "Oh, how I desired to be a teacher. Most of my life I watched white teachers boast in the fact they were privileged and prided themselves as being the only ones qualified to teach our black children from kindergarten to high school in what they considered their domain. They filled their heads with white lies. Some of the biggest lies were white skin is better than black skin, Columbus discovered America, Edison invented the light bulbs, and they will always be subject to whites, like their black slave ancestors. These lies they proudly taught. In some of our diverse schoolhouses, our black children are robbed weekly of having one African American teacher with no black role model teacher in early education. Our children are given a false sense of reality. This systematic racial bias was and is promoted in our democratic educational system today." And I thank you for listening to the first poem entitled White Teachers. And this is a fact. We have a diverse teachers education system. And I'm just looking back, thinking in my mind about my son, my oldest son. He went all the way from kindergarten to 12th grade and didn't have not one African-American teacher. It can happen. I'm a living proof of it. And I think that's a sad situation in what we call a diverse teachers education system, that we can have some of my African-American students will go 12 years in school and not see one role model of their own race. So we have to be mindful of that. And some of the ideas in the poem you see where they teach all of these falsehoods about the history of our country. Columbus discovered America, which we know is not true. I don't want to go back and just restate everything that was read to you in the poem, because the poem speaks for itself. But we have to be mindful of this, because what it does, it gives our children, our African-American children, a false reality of life. We're going on to our next poem. This was entitled White Wife and Black Husband. And this poem reads, "Some American white women choose to marry African-American men. This interracial marriage has been in place since biblical days. There is nothing no one can do to stop it. Moses set a prime example of an interracial marriage. Though Moses set a prime example of the marriage, some of the general public don't agree with them. They don't see why two races should marry. Some interracial marriages last until death, others fall apart in divorces. In any case, these marriages always bring to front the best of both of the two races. They cause people to voice opinions of the marriages. It is a mystery in human nature to figure out why people of different races join in marriages. This interracial marriage mystery of old never changes. We learn in Moses' case, marriage is God's business. So it is best nosy people keep their mouth off of them. Their chances of survival are just as good as two people of the same race marriage. But we can't overlook the fact that if a white-skinned wife is pushed into a corner of life, she will call her black-skinned husband a nigger. It is in his DNA, in her DNA, and it will never change. We, as black people, live with this fact. Now, the poem kind of ends with a bang, but it's a fact that we know as a race of people. Interracial marriages started way back in the biblical days. Moses is a prime example, like the poem has stated, of this type of a marriage. So, and also you see in the poem, it's just, don't be nosy. Keep your mouth out of it, because we see what happened in the case of Moses. His sister and brother, Aaron and Aaron, got so nosy, they just figured, hey, we're going to tell our brother who to marry and who not to marry. And God was a little upset with that. And he came down and he put leprosy on Mary. And you know the biblical story. But again, just to restate, it's best when you see interracial marriages, keep your mouth out of it, because it's none of your business. And we see whose business it is, according to the poem. It's God's business. So marriage is God's business. So you just have to live with the choice people have for their mates and live your own life and stay out of their lives. Let's go on to our next poem. This one is entitled American White Woman Nakedness, and it reads, "It is a disgrace for some white-skinned women to march around showing their nakedness in the eyes of the general public. But the American white-skinned woman takes pleasure in showing off her nakedness to the public. At times, she will wear the skimpest garments to show her nakedness. In Hollywood movies, she sheds the skimpy garments and parades her nude body before cameras. She picks scenes with black men in movies where she can show black men her nakedness, so she can entice them off the stage of Hollywood. Nakedness is her source of power over weak men and men of honor. She uses her nakedness to lure black women to show their naked bodies on and off movie stages. She is a sly vixen set to achieve her ultimate goals. She wears her nakedness as a garment and bears no shame for her nakedness. Her nakedness mirrors her inner evil image. At times, she will add a touch of paint or tattoos to fill the lust in the eyes of those that lust after her. Her white skin shines like diamonds and precious, priceless treasures to them. The American white-skinned woman set patterns for nations of other white-skinned women, but none has the flair for nakedness as the American white-skinned woman." Now, I know some of you viewers are probably saying, what a poem. These are facts I'm sharing, and I always like to use the expression, everyone's entitled to their opinion, even in poetry. So I'm going to let this poem speak for itself, and you can hopefully enjoy the revelation and wisdom that's embedded in it. We're going on to our next poem, and this one is entitled White Women Employers. And of the ones I'm sharing with you in this portion of the program, this is my favorite, right? White Women Employers. And it reads, "Come and fill out application with qualified experiences and good trustworthy references. The company is hiring. So you wait in line for your answer from your potential white female employer. Sorry, you didn't get the job because you were overqualified for one of the jobs and underqualified for the other job you applied for. You move on and fill out several other white female employers' applications just to hear the same results echoed. You wonder why. You realize the racist systematic force is in control. If you attended a certain college and live in a better neighborhood than a female employer, jealousy speaks up and says, not here. So these white female employers live by their vow. What the black woman can do, I can do better. Their treacherous, selfish attitude brings no employment and no finance. But black wisdom speaks. You may not hire me. Yet I will rise and provide for my household. In spite of you, I will rise. I have the wisdom to build my home in spite of you. Now, this poem speaks to the fact that in some cases, white women will never ever hire black women. And that's a sad fact, and it is a fact. I want to restate that. It is a fact that some, and I can say this from even personal experiences, you can go in and have the qualifications that's needed for a certain job, but then when you get ready to apply for that job, if you got a white employer, female employer, she'll look at you like, not here. I'm not hiring you. Now, if you have not seen that or experienced that, you live on. And it's a sad reality, but it's true. And again, we're talking about the white American woman. So I'm not saying that white men don't do the same thing, but we're focusing on what the white woman does. And I think the bottom line is jealousy. And like we see in the poem, in some cases, they know where that employee, applicants live, and they know their financial status and all this kind of whatever. And then they just like, I'm not hiring you. That's the bottom line to their interaction with a lot of our African-American women who go to apply for jobs. And you would think that with all the labor laws we have, that type of a transaction should not be, but it is. I just want to just put a pin in this right here, so to speak. Put a nail in it, because I want you to hear me as very loud and clear. If you have not experienced this, I'm going to say it again. You just live on, and you're going to see that many times you will not get hired because this white female is looking at you as to say, you're trying to be better than me, and I'm just not going to let it happen. And that's a dirty shame, and it's a reality too. But that's what we see out there in the in the employment world. And again, with all the labor laws, you would think, how in the world can they get by with this? But they do. And you can stand in line. Here's another thing I want to note before I move on to the next poem. You can stand in line in a waiting room, and you know certain people come in after you. And when they call you up in certain situations, one at a time, if that person is white to come in after you, they'll get called in first to be interviewed. And that's a dirty shame. It happens. We're going on to our next poem. This one is entitled The Typical White Woman, and it reads, The typical white-skinned woman wants to deliver a blonde-haired and blue-eyed baby for her husband. For some unseen reason, she believes the hair and the eye color gives the child some sort of high status in the social international world. She loves to cross her legs and claims to be equal to men, yet she prides herself as being the better woman. She rests her naked body in the sun for a suntan. She hates black skin but tans her skin a shade darker. This hypocritical manner is ludicrous. She rules her house with an iron fist, yet her husband meets her every demands. He puts her on a pedestal for all women to see. This show of love from her husband makes her think she is better than all women. She is quick to abort her child because she wants to keep her body beautiful for him. With her love for him grows old. When her love for him grows cold, she is quick to turn to another female for love and sex. She cries and pitches temper tantrums when finance is low, but insists on living in the better neighborhoods. She wears the best of clothing and eats the best of food. Social gatherings are always a must for her image. The typical white woman is a role model for the majority of white-skinned women that want to keep a status quo. Without this type of living, some will commit suicide because they know no other way of life. It is a sad reality, but this is the mindset of the typical white-skinned woman. So, as a rule, you see the word typical. So what I'm saying, in a general sense, this poem describes a majority of a lot of white women. They feel like, I am just a queen in my house. I do what I want to do. I set the rules, and I tell my husband what to do, and he has to do what I tell him to do. So she rules her house with an iron fist. Oh, I've seen it. And the little husband, he just does what she tells him to do. I want a vacation, she gets it. I want a mink coat, I'm going to get it. I want new furniture, whatever her desire is. He does that, and I think he just really enables her to think that she's better than any other woman in the world. I'm talking international, national and international. And this, he gives her this false sense of reality. And because of that, I think this is why she downplays other women, because she thinks she's the better woman on God's earth. And that's a false reality. I think every woman, regardless of your race that you're in, creed, or nation, whatever, you're the woman of that race, and that race only. But for some other reason, this white-skinned woman thinks that, and I think it all depends on how her husband treats her. If he treats her in a certain manner, that makes her think that she's better than everyone else. The poem starts off talking about the blue-eyed baby and the blonde-haired baby. And a lot of women, I've heard this conversation between some of my white friends, and they'll think, oh, I want my baby, he's got blonde hair and he's got blue eyes. And I'm sitting here thinking to myself, big deal. So what if he does have blonde hair and blue eyes? So what are you trying to say to me when you tell me that? So I think that's just a thing in the Caucasian race, that they think that if the child has blonde hair and blue eyes, like in the poem, that give them some kind of special status in life. But I don't buy into that. If the little Caucasian baby has brown hair and brown eyes, to me, that baby is no better than the baby who has blue eyes and blonde hair. But for some reason, I don't know how deep this goes in the race of people, but it seemed like something special if the child has blonde hair and blue eyes. And then we see in the poem, too, as the poem kind of closes, she pitches a temper tantrum if she doesn't get the things in life or in her home that she wants. And someone might say, well, that's just a typical behavior of any woman. But you have to look at that in a different light when you're talking about the white-skinned woman. She just feels like that husband she has should just go to extreme limits to get whatever she wants. And you have not seen that. Just look around, and you'll see that this is basically what she does in her household. Whatever she wants, she's going to tell her husband, give it to me, and that's what he's going to do for her. And then kind of goes on to the end of the poem, and it just kind of says that because of this woman being spoiled, so to speak, just like a child, and she's accustomed to that type of a lifestyle, if she doesn't have that type of lifestyle, then you see things get real, real serious. A lot of them will commit suicide, and that is a sad, sad reality. This is my thoughts on the typical white-skinned woman. And I hope that you have enjoyed the poems up to this point. We're going to take a break, and I will see you shortly after break. Don't go away. Welcome back to Biblical Poetry. We're going back into our poetic lesson, which is entitled The American White Woman. And our next poem is entitled Racial Hair, and it reads, some babies are born hairless, but in due season, the child's hair grows. So every nation on earth has hair on the head. Be it African American, the head is covered with hair. Be it Native American Indians, the head is covered with hair. Be it Asians, the head is covered with hair. Be it Caucasians, the head is covered with hair. Be it Nigerian or Ethiopian, the head is covered with hair. Be it Chinese, Japanese, or other nations, the head is covered with hair. But every hair product on the market can make the hair black or white. Behold, long hair is the glory of a woman. God in his beauty shop created hair for each race of people for his name's sake. So what is your problem that you can't accept the diverse hair God has placed on the heads of every nation of people? This may be a no-nonsense poem, but fools have a problem with the diverse heads of hair God has created and the hair texture God has created. This poem just speaks for itself. And you see one line that says maybe a no-nonsense poem. The person might look at it because you see a lot of repetition in the poem, but the conclusion of the poem is the texture of the hair and the manner of the hair and the color and all this is God's business, not your business. Let's go on to our next poem. This one's entitled White Eyes, and it reads, she could see the strength of his sexual organs as he stepped off of the slave boats and stood on the slave wooden blocks. She would imagine how wonderful it would be to have her much-needed sexual desires granted. She waited. When she felt threatened, when things got out of hand, she screamed rape. She would call her husband and said the nigger ripped her clothing and tangled her hair. She was on point to get the nigger hung for her honor on the plantation. She would stand in the crowd as the nigger lover hung by the neck from a tree. She didn't stop, nor did her desire for the slave lover. She was driven to meet her sexual desires. She knew her husband didn't have the sexual ability as her black slave lover. In her white eyes, she was a mere midget. He was a mere midget to the slave man. His quest for equal sexual ability was null and void to the slave man. He watched as his woman screamed for joy under his silk sheets. He knew one day this sexual pleasure would be known to the world, but the slave man sung his song that one day his sexual pleasure would be legal in the land in the white eyes of the ones who yelled rape. What more can I say? The poem speaks for itself. A lot of the slave owners was raping our 12 and 13-year-old kids, and they didn't realize that their wife had their eyes on the black slave and desired to have sex with him. Let's move on to our next poem. This one's entitled The Good White Woman, and it reads, all white women are not prejudiced, nor do they uphold the burdens of slavery, nor do they buy into the white supremacy theory that whites are better humans than black people. These are they that will lend you a helping hand in the time of your needs. If necessary, they will feed and clothe you. These women are many in number. And look around you. You can find them in our society. Some said they are hard to find. I say you are looking too hard. They are easily found. Some said all white females hate black people. I said think again. This good white women are bold in nature and will stand up for what they know is right. They teach their children not to be racist and challenges their husbands to do the same. They are like shining lights and bridges to cross for peace and justice in the land. They don't mind sharing knowledge and wisdom with those that will listen. The good white woman kindness is international. She doesn't fear the past, the present, or the future because her heart is set for goodness for all mankind. The path she travels is plain and clear of trash. She brings joy and laughter into the world filled with envy. She never looks back, but presses forward for even a better day. This good white woman footprints will always be an example for generations to come. So I just wanted you to know in this telecast that there are a lot of good women, white women out there. But I want to just show both sides of the coin, so to speak, concerning the American white woman. We hear so much in the news about the black woman, and I just wanted to just highlight the white woman today for you. Here's our last poem for the day. This is entitled The Petticoat Game. And I'm quite sure you can, as viewers, can relate to this poem. And it reads, as a people, we study things in nature. Squirrels leap from tree limb to tree limb. They have great timing, balance, and rhythm. Birds sing with perfect harmony. The lions roar in the jungles, and the flowers bloom in due season. All of these lessons in nature teach us that our children also learn from nature. So, a white elementary school teacher told me, The patty cake game was created for black children to play, not white children. The two-player game requires perfect rhythm, rhyme, and timing of the hands. The educator expressed the motor skills, and the songs for the games would be too hard for white students to learn and enjoy. Her social, selfish, racist attitude is a prime example of the social economical norm of many white teachers. It promotes at best white supremacy systematic systems in our USA early educational system. We agree as parents, our African American students' DNA, fine and gross motor skills are under fire. But on gym floors, they are expected to perform for white-skinned teachers, like animals in nature. This teaching is ludicrous. It defies the law of the land and the law of nature. What a point. It's a fact. Some educators, white-skinned educators, women, they just figure that they're going to make a difference between the activities that our African-American children take part in school, and I think that is just so biased and so wrong. But this little game stands out to me because this is a personal experience I'm sharing with you in this poem. I had this conversation with a white educator, and this is what she told me. She says, white kids can't play patty cake game. That game is not designed for white children. It's for black students. And I'm just standing there listening to her, and I've thought to myself, I wish I had you on video so you could just see how silly you sound. So I'm hoping that you enjoyed the program, enjoyed bringing it to you. Here's a word of wisdom. Stay poetic, stay with the Lord, and I'll see you next time Biblical Poetry Shows. May God bless you.